Alright guys, welcome to the OG Retro Community Podcast. I'm your host Ryan, aka OG Retro. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate all the questions that were sent in to me either over DM or commented on the post. We have so much good stuff to talk about today. But let's jump right into it. We have a question from Matt Donde7 asking, how did you get into collecting? What was your favorite childhood game? And he's got another one after that, but let me answer those two first. I'll answer the favorite childhood game, dude. My favorite childhood games had to be the Pokemon games. I mean, I got a Game Boy Color and I got Pokemon Red for my first system in game when I was probably, I guess it was 99. And I was like 4 years old, and I didn't put it down, dude. I played Pokemon Red even if I had no idea where I was going. I remember navigating my way through Mount Moon, the one where you need Flash, and I didn't use Flash. I just fucking learned to do it by failing a million times in that game. And that's like one of those humbling childhood memories when you realize that there was a fucking HM called Flash that could have made that way easier. And yeah, I didn't know that, and I did that whole thing without it. And so that was a cool childhood memory. And I don't know, once I found that out, there were so many things about those games where you could just find out more and learn more stuff. And I remember older kids teaching me things that I didn't know, and I remember that being a huge thing. Like going to parties and shit with my Game Boy and like trying to find the kid there that knew the most about Pokemon because he would help me. And I remember that, and so those are definitely my favorite childhood games, the Pokemon games. And it's one of the, I think it leads me into the next question perfectly. How did you get into collecting? Because those were some of the first games that I was like, I want those back as an adult. As an adult, I'd say 2 years ago, I started collecting about, and there were two games that I really wanted to have, or three things that I really wanted to have. I wanted to have a complete in box, purple Game Boy Color, like my childhood Game Boy Color, and then I wanted to have complete in box versions of Pokemon Gold and Pokemon Silver. Pokemon Silver being my one of my favorite games of all time, and definitely one of the ones I have the fondest memories of as a kid. And so those were the first three things I actually ended up getting to put into my collection. And those were actually, believe it or not, those are some of the only three things I've paid full retail for. Because after that, I think what kind of spurred or kind of catalysted the collecting even further was the idea that these things were expensive, and if I wanted to get them, I'd have to be a little bit more thrifty about it. And so that was exciting, and that kind of just snowballed, and now I have all of this, and it's awesome. The next question, Pito Rodriguez Art asked, how have games helped you with struggles in life? That's a great question. For me personally, there's so many answers to it too, but I'll start, with that childhood me playing Pokemon. I think, we all dealt with various issues, and whether it was childhood trauma or childhood bullying or, whatever you faced, I dealt with whatever. But a lot of those things I was comforted by, my Game Boy and Pokemon. So, and that honestly still holds through today. I think, I'm dealing with a lot, those of you who know me and those of you don't, either way, but I'm dealing with a lifelong illness, and I think games still today help me every day. I mean, it's a place to get away. It's a place for my anxiety to kind of die. So games for sure have helped me, whether it was escaping a bully when I was a kid, just, go to Pallet Town, bro. Pick a new starter, whatever. Start a new journey. Or if it's today, you know, dealing with all the crazy medical news I gotta deal with, and you know the symptoms I have. It's an escape, and it's a good one. So games have definitely helped me with struggles in life. Bo's Game Room. What's the priciest thing I have bought for my collection and the most money I have made selling something, or like most money on a flip? I might have modified that question a little bit, but I figured that's pretty much what he asked. And it's good to talk about this. The priciest thing I bought for my collection, I thought about this for a while, and I think there's a lot of like sets or kind of like, you know, boxes of games, bundles of games that are pricey, and you add them all up, they're definitely high up there. But if I had to pick one single item that's the most money, I think it has to be the GameCube retail sign I bought from Australia. Um, I think I mentioned previously, a lot of games at this point I'm really thrifty about, and I don't pay, you know, full retail, or I find ways to get them, or I find them in the wild for cheap, find in garage sales, thrift stores, whatever. But that wasn't the case with this GameCube sign. I found it on eBay, and while I still think I got a really good deal on it, I got a really good price on it, I bought it from Australia, and so shipping was a lot, and I think after everything's said and done, it still only cost me like 550 US dollars with shipping, with insurance, because I paid extra for better insurance, and I'll show a photo of it on the screen. But yeah, that is probably the thing I spent the most money on in terms of like overall cost for a single item. Definitely that I still have, like I still have that in my collection. I paid, thinking now, I've sold a complete in box copy of Earthbound, but even that I paid less than 550. So yeah, I think that's the answer to that. But then the next question he asked her, what's the most money I made on a flip or sale? And I think that there's a couple of things that could answer this as well. But I've made a couple $100, a few $100 on a variety of things. And actually there's one item I made over 1,000 on. Let's start with the item I made over 1,000 on, and that's it's actually kind of similar to the GameCube sign. It was a SNES Super Bright sign, um, from a local find. So the Super Bright signs were in like retail stores back in the early 90s and stuff, when the SNES was popular. And it's a really beautiful neon sign, and they're super hard to find now, very rare, and they were super fragile, tended to rust out. A variety of things happened to them, so they're not they're not as you know, available as they used to be or whatever. But I found a guy. I was doing my usual Facebook Marketplace searches, and I saw a guy that said, I think it just said like SNES sign or video game sign or something like that. It wasn't super specific. It didn't say super bright or anything. And I think at the time I didn't even really know what, I knew what these signs were, but I wasn't fully versed in like the history of the super bright and the variety of the super bright signs. Um, but I knew this was cool, and it was on Facebook Marketplace, and it was up for $100. Um, yeah, and I knew that these things were worth definitely thousands, and so instantly I had messaged him, and I was like, "Listen, I know you're probably getting a lot of messages right now, but um, can I hit you with a $400 offer? Like I'd like to pay $400 for it. I can meet you right now." This guy was relatively local to me. Um, and I actually didn't end up hearing from him for a couple hours. I figured he had already sold it or something. And I got pretty discouraged. But I think later that day or the next day, I got a message from him saying, "Yeah, you're right, man. I did get hundreds of messages. You were one of the first to contact me, and you with the highest offer." Um, he was like, "Would you mind if I delivered it? I'm gonna be out of town for a while, And I was like, okay, kind of weird. He's like, do you mind if I delivered it and just pay for gas money? And I was like, okay, yeah, I guess that's fine. So we settled on. He ended up living a little bit further than I thought. He lived in like the Bronx or something, or Brooklyn, New York City, and I was in New Jersey. And so I ended up giving him an extra $50. I was like, listen, I'll give you 450. You come to me right now. And he's like, okay. And so that day I met the dude in a bank parking lot, which I don't know if it was sketchy or not, but he seemed like a really good guy, and I've never had any issues, knock on wood, with anything yet. But that's not to say you shouldn't be careful. But yeah, this gentleman met me in the bank parking lot, and sure enough, he had the Superbite sign, and he told me that he ended up stopping by his grandparents' house or his grandma's house to just say hello, and he saw this sign in the garbage outside, and instantly him himself described. He said he was a comic book collector, and so he knew that something like this might have been valuable, I think, and he said that himself, and so he had to save it, and I was like, well, thank you, and so anyways, yeah, I bought it for $450. I couldn't test it in the parking lot, but he sent me pictures of it working, and for $450 it was worth it either way. It was in good shape, it seemed. Fast forward a day later, and this kind of segues into my next question too, is have you met any lifelong friends in this hobby, in this community? Octopus asked that, and so yeah, this segues perfectly into that. I sold this Super Bright sign to a gentleman, J Bam, Jay, who is now definitely a lifelong friend, but we didn't know, but he lived 15 minutes from me at the time, and Jay is one of the biggest collectors on Instagram that I know, just in general. He's got everything, but he didn't have a SNES Super Bright sign, and we worked out an awesome deal that was over $1,000, including a loose copy of Earthbound. Just good deal for both of us. He got it for a really good price. Although, here's the kicker: full full honesty and full disclosure, and I won't make this mistake again. I told him, and I told myself. Um, about a day into his ownership of that Super Bright sign, he noticed some roaches. This sign coming out of the dirty gremlin, the dirty, the dirty city. It had some roaches in it, so he had to handle that, and I feel kind of bad, but he got it for a good price, and there was a record for a sign just like that selling afterwards for an extra 1,000 for what I sold it for. So Jay, if you're watching, love you, brother. Jay is a lifelong friend. You asked about lifelong friends. I met Jay early in this hobby, probably about 2 years ago now, or a year and a half ago. And I think because he lives so close and because we're able to hang out so much, he's definitely become a lifelong friend. Uh, he's a little bit older than myself. I'm a young guy, but Jay's, he's like an older brother. He's got some good wisdom and some bad wisdom. And some bad wisdom. But love the dude, and besides Jay, I mean, there's so many people on here that I talk to every day. I would have to make a whole another hour podcast that list all the names that I talk to every day and have awesome conversations with. So it's definitely something I'm super thankful for. Um, oh, this is a good question. Two Guys Toys and More, shout out them. Great store run by two awesome guys. Uh, they ask, what makes a game timeless to you? Something you can play over and over. And I have to say this kind of relates to my first question to answer. What makes a game timeless to me? I think the most important thing is nostalgia. For me, a game is only timeless when I started playing it, I don't know, young. I even games today that I love, I don't think I'll play 20 years from now. But I don't know, like I still play games like Pokemon Silver, Zelda Ocarina of Time, uh, Mario 64, Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, um, God of War 1 and 2, Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2. Like, these are all games I played as a kid, and I mean, the mechanics of them were a little bit simpler than mechanics of today's games. The stories were just as good though, and I think for me that's what does it. It's a game that I can pick up without thinking, already kind of know what's going on, but still appreciate the story that's put in front of me and also appreciate new things or notice new things about these games that I hadn't noticed before. I think that's what makes a game timeless. And I maybe there will be new games. I'm like there's this game in my head that I'm thinking now that is a modern game that's probably timeless I'd consider. And that's The Witcher 3. It's literally my favorite game of all time. And I guess yeah, I say of all time, but I guess that kind of means timeless. The Witcher 3 is a masterpiece, and I think I'll definitely be. I still come back to that game every now and then, and I think I will continue to. Um, it's definitely a gem. Gengar and Friends asks thoughts on the Pokemon series as a whole. I think I've covered that a lot, but he asked specifically about like TCG and stuff. I love Pokemon cards too. I have all the base set hollows. I have all, and I'm working. I have all the base set hollows. I'm working on Jungle and Fossil. I have most of the Neo hollows. So I have a lot of them. I'm super into them, and that's another thing. I used to collect cards as a kid. My Pokemon cards got unfortunately stolen or misplaced. I think they were stolen when we were moving, and I was pretty devastated as a young child. But as an adult with a little bit more money, I decided to start working on that collection again, and it's pretty substantial at this point. Next one. Oh, this is cool. The Bearded Retro Gamer asked about my favorite non-gaming pickup. And for me, this has to be. I'm really into cars too. So it has to be one of the cars I've owned. And obviously, I have to choose my BMW E30 wagon. I bought this car on eBay. I'm always using eBay, Facebook Market, anywhere I can get a deal. You'll find OG Retro. And so, actually, my dad forwarded me this listing for E30 wagon, right-hand drive, 167,000 miles. So it didn't have not low mileage, but super rare car at the time for the US, and it was actually already in the US. And I ended up winning an eBay auction for the car for $5,500. And I mean, that was a good deal. And just to give you an idea, I sold that car for double that just this year. Granted, I put some work into it, but still, that was definitely one of my favorite pickups I've ever made. That's not a gaming pickup. Let's see, what else do we got? We have a question from PlayStation Guy 87. How did I get into modding consoles and handhelds? And you know what? This actually goes back to my childhood as well. Um, we I was always super into, tinkering with things and playing around with things, and I was always kind of creative in the sense that I like to like draw and paint, and I'm a photographer now, so I think that's where that came from as well. But I had a purple GameCube as a kid, and I remember printing out, like, I still have it actually. I'll have to take a picture of it. Um, but I printed out on like photo paper, like high quality. I call them stickers of like Mario characters and different Nintendo characters, and I think I must have hot glued them or like super glued them onto the sides of the GameCube and like the lid of the GameCube, and then I made a little whatever that thing's called, the jewel, the GameCube jewel thing that sits in the middle. I made a custom one of those, and like with my, it was weird. I used my gamer tag for my Xbox, but put it on my GameCube. So I must have done this when I had an Xbox. It was at the point when I had an Xbox. So that's kind of funny. Anyways, I digress. But so I did that to my GameCube, and then I also remember modding a PSP. The first PSP I got, I remember wanting to do like, I heard about like homebrew and being able to install like emulators and all these cool things. And again, I must have been like, I don't know, maybe 11 or something. Whenever the PSP came out, plus a year. Um, and then yeah, I decided to mod the PSP, like software mod it, and I got really into that, and I remember doing that really well, and yeah, that just kind of stuck with me, I guess. And I remember doing various failed hardware mods to like my Xbox 360s, like stupid side windows and shit. And oh, I did do when rapid fire buttons were a thing. That was when I learned how to solder for the first time, learning how to solder for like a modded controller button for Call of Duty. I was one of those nerds. That's right. I completely forgot about that until I just started talking. Uh, let's go with one more question before we get to the big question that I think most people are waiting for. Let's go with I don't know who asked this one, but I'll shout it out later if I find out. But they asked my favorite genre, my and like what I like about that game. So my favorite genre, I'm gonna say probably MMORPG or RPGs or classic RPGs, a Japanese RPG. I like sports games too. I like FPS games, but I think RPGs and that kind of fantasy element, that world, that's what I'm into for sure. My favorite games in that world, I played a lot of World of Warcraft, a lot of WoW. Not too much, not any anymore, but I feel like that game's died. And even when they brought Classic back, I got into it for a while, but I couldn't stick with it, man. Just too time consuming, too demanding, and I didn't want to do it. And then I really like The Witcher 3, like I said, the best action RPG of all time. Breath of the Wild for the Switch, another great one. Ocarina of Time, all the classic Zelda RPGs, really. Like Link's Awakening, the new one for Switch, the old one for Game Boy. They're all really good. I think Metroidvanias are kind of my second favorite category or genre. I love the Metroid series. Zero Mission has to be my favorite. Super Metroid would probably be a close second. I love Hollow Knight. That game, indie game, came out on the PC, Switch, PS4. I think it's on all platforms. That game is a super fun Metroidvania. Um, yeah, I think that's all for those questions. But guys, then we had the old raffle question. Y'all wanted to really pick my brains about what I thought about the boom in IG raffles, the state of IG raffles. As someone who joined this community, I checked. I joined it in August 2 years ago. So it's coming up. This August will be 2 years on Instagram with y'all under OG Retro and everything. And I'll start by telling kind of my story with raffles and waffles, whatever the hell you want to call them. I call them waffles now just to beat that IG algorithm. But I'll tell you my story with them. I started OG Retro August, I guess 2018, because I wanted a place to. I saw other people posting cool photos of their collections and just showing off different games they had and different stuff that I recognized from like childhood and shit. And so, being kind of a creative person and a photographer in general, someone who I literally went to school for photography, um, I decided I wanted to just, create my own account. I love doing Instagram. At the time, I had been running a small, like, beer Instagram called The Beer and Now. You can look it up. And I wanted something a little bit different because point blank, I was drinking too much beer. Like, I had become lucky, not an alcoholic, but like to keep content up. Think about how much gaming content I post. That's what I was doing with beer. And just, you guys can understand why that would be a problem if you know how much I post. So I switched to I made OG Retro, and I thought that was a fucking awesome name. It's original retro or OG, the OG original gangster, whatever you wanna, however you wanna do it. I say OG Retro. Some people say 0G because it is a zero, but whatever. Anyways, I started the account with no intentions of making it a business or making it monetizable, making it profitable, whatever all those words are. I had no intention of ever doing that. Um, I think around 1,000 followers, or before that, I had seen other people. There's one person I remember doing it before me and doing it well, at least, in my opinion. I'll give him a shout out. Shout out my boy Modded Marsh on Instagram. I saw him running them PSP waffles before me for sure, and he was killing it. And I was like, I didn't want to bite on his style really, but I wanted to do something different. I thought I could bring something a little bit, more unique. Not more unique, just a different lane. I was doing. My idea was the limited edition 3DSs and 2DSs, and just really focus on quality systems, stuff that's in beautiful condition, something a collector would want, and then on top of it, software mod it, and give it that whole treatment, load it with games, everything you already know. And so that was my idea, and that was how I did it. I think at 1,000 followers, I was like, okay, I see other people doing this, but I think I can do something a little bit different and kind of provide a different angle to this. And so I did. And my first raffle I ever did was I remember it, a complete in box, limited edition Zelda 2DS, the green and yellow one. And it was modded and it was in beautiful shape, whatever, and it went really well. And at that point, like I said, I only had 1,000 followers, so I thought for 1,000 followers that was amazing. And yeah, I wanted to. At first, I was gonna do them every Wednesday. I called them the Wednesday raffles. Um, and it started like that, and I just brought a really dope item every Wednesday, and then I realized, I mean, my account grew very quickly, and I think it was partly due to those, and partly due to the, how I manage everything on here, and how I treat this as a business, and I put a lot of work into it. So it really it I and let me correct myself. I treat it as a business after it was a business. When it was just my hobby, I was chilling pretty much, but I was still putting a lot of effort into building this audience. Um, but yeah, once I started gaining more traction, I just started doing them more frequently, and just continued to try and bring quality. And that's not to say I didn't have people hating on my prices sometimes, or hating on the way I did things, or whatever. I definitely did. Shout out to all of y'all, because I'm still here, and you know what? You're not. And however, I think the more important question, and that's, like I said, shout out all my raffle guys. I love you all for real. Everyone that's come up, this is kind of the question that other people were asking, is like, what do you think of everything that's happening now? Because since I've come up, and since many other around me have come up in this space, it is now to the point where you see a new person entering this raffle community every day. I guarantee it. There's someone new doing it every day. And I think it's a good and a bad thing. I think it's a good thing because people are doing their thing, and I think there's a way you can still do it while doing it in a way that's maybe innovative or different than someone else, or you're in a different market than someone else, you're providing a different product, you're able to provide better prices. I mean, a variety of things. There's a variety of things that I think are valuable, and ways to contribute in a positive way to the raffle community. And I think there are a lot of people who do that, a lot of new people that do that, and I think there are a lot of new people that don't do that. And I think, unlike, I don't know, I don't want to use myself as an example, because it's not like, oh, I'm the best or anything, because I'm not. I've fucked up many times, and there are plenty of people that I personally think do it even better than me. Shout out my man DNA Games. Like, truthfully, DNA, he does all these Switch raffles. He's definitely someone I look up to on this. I mean, fantastic dude. So there's definitely people that do it better than me. But I think starting from a place of, you have to know what you're in it for. And originally I wasn't in this for money. And now maybe I am, but I think starting from that place put me in a put I don't know, just set me in the right direction to do this low key ethically. Um Let me see. I have some notes here. I had a long talk with a couple people on IG about it. Shout out Retro Buy and Sell. Um, Another guy in the raffle community, definitely a little bit newer than I, but not. He's been around here for a while at this point, so I'm not gonna take that from him. But we were talking about the idea of mini raffles and just the idea of buybacks and kind of the different things associated with pricing, everything, the different things associated with the raffle community. And I brought up the point that I don't. A lot of people know, because I made it clear that I don't run minis. I don't have buybacks. I don't do any of that stuff. My raffles have been consistent and the same since I started this. And I think there's a lot to say for that. That says a lot, you know. Um, I think I found a good system and it's worked and it's fair and I've used that. Now, do I think people running minis or running buybacks are evil people? No, that would be crazy. Do I support them? It puts me in a weird position because it's something I really don't believe in. I don't think, I think we're already kind of pushing the edge, pushing the boundary in terms of like gambling and that kind of thing. And I think just taking it that extra step doesn't feel right to me. Doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel right to me. But I don't take it away from anybody that wants to participate in something like that or someone that runs that. That's really all I have to say on that. And the mini thing, I think there are ways to price your items better so that you don't have to run minis. And then I also think if you have to run minis and you have to do these creative ways to fill your raffles, maybe you should just take it to eBay or take it to Mercari. Like, maybe you shouldn't raffle it. Maybe you should just put it on eBay. I don't know. That's just my take. Before I want to say Retro Buy and Sell did bring up one point that people kind of like the cheap thrill of winning a mini and then potentially winning the bigger raffle. And I guess I get that, but okay, a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't like having to win a raffle to win a raffle. So I think that argument goes both ways. Um but yeah, I think that's just about everything we have for today for the first Q&A. I hope you guys learned something about me. I could do more of these in the future if you're interested. I really appreciate y'all listening to me. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week or the week after, it should be next week, we're going to have a special guest on, and that's going to be the theme of the podcast going forward. It's going to be OG Retro and the community, where I'm going to invite community guests on. We're going to talk about things like this, things about gaming, current events in gaming, nostalgia surrounding gaming, you know, current gaming drama. We're going to kind of try and cover it all here. But next week, watch out for that. I appreciate y'all for listening this. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you drop a comment. Let me know what you think. And definitely make sure to hit the subscribe button if you want to be kept in touch for what's to come, guys. I appreciate you all. Much love. Peace.